First stage, time trial, almost prologue short, but with a reasonable climb hidden in the profile, there was room for the GC contenders to show, or as this hastily dried oil slick indicates, to crash out on a twisty descent. Tinkoff-Saxo's Alberto Contador attacked the day's climb with his snappy, upright form to unseat early pace-setter Bob Jungels of Trek by just over a second. Still, in what's become a Team Sky trademark, Chris Froome covered almost the entire climb in the aero bars, managed not to crash on the oil dry, and came in a convincing 8 seconds faster. Stage 2, already serious business climbs. Sky set pace all day but also overextended themselves, dropping Richie Porte early, and by 6k to go, Froome was isolated in a still largest group with just Mikel Nieve for support. Froome, acutely aware of this, attacked twice as Nieve pulled off. Only Contador could match him, but with still 5k to go, the Tinkoff rider wasn't in a helping mood. Belkin's Wilco Kelderman took a flyer which Froome eventually brought back, but Nibali was dropped in the process. Behind all this surging, Garmin's Andrew Talansky had been riding steadily and eventually rejoined the bunch with Nibali in tow. Despite some troubles with his earpiece, Talansky went right to the front, I'd guess trying to set a pace he hoped would keep the group together for as long as possible, shortening the time gaps at the finish. Still, Froome had a definite short-effort edge on the rest, and the Skyrider attacked inside the final K. Again, Contador could keep up but couldn't pass, leaving Froome the stage win, although the GC damage to the next 5 finishers was less than 12 seconds. Stage 3, I guess this is what passes for a sprint stage, and if the mountains weren't enough, the run-in was crazy. You can watch Green Edge straight up drop Giant Shimano with aggressive cornering, then Europcar's Yannick Martinez slips inside in this next bend, but sometimes a little space can help you get up to speed. In fact, Giant Shimano's Nikias Arndt actually ends up getting a bit of a lead-out from Martinez, who dives for the Orica Green Edge wheels a bit prematurely while Arndt elects to make one more surge into the wind. FDJ's Arnaud Demar was similarly back in the cheap seats, but didn't have the opening to get around outside and very nearly gets taken out trying to find a gap that's not there. Lotto's Chris Boekmans hung in the wheels until the last moment and clearly has the speed to overhaul Arndt, but runs out of road and nearly braking space. Stage 4, big break up the road, Peloton managing the gap, but then Europcar's Thomas Vogler attacks because that's what he does. He was recaptured quickly and later dropped, but the camera time he stole caused us to miss an attack by Katusha's Yuri Trofimov, not a fan of marginal gains it would seem, but willing to compensate with a heroically reckless descent. Garmin's rider Hessedal drove a group of 3 clear towards the top of the climb, but the GC group was more than content to hand them a couple seconds in the name of safety, and even then, a few riders still went down. Trofimov took the solo win, Hessedal's group came in with some remnants of the break, and the bunch rolled in 40 seconds later. Another day with a big break up the road, but Contador made some effort on a descent to rattle Froome's cage, though the course wasn't nearly as friendly for teammate Mikael Andersen. Sky didn't look comfortable chasing the Tinkoff rider, who ran his advantage out to 50 seconds, as at the head of affairs, Katusha's Simon Spilak continued the unzipped jersey trend, soloing clear at 21k to go. Contador was finally reeled in 3k later, decidedly not the worse for wear, which couldn't be said of Sky, who let 4th place Kelderman slip free on the closing kilometers, though he was perhaps aided by some terrible course setup. Spilak was finally convinced to zip up his jersey before taking the stage, and Kelderman's late escape rolled in 14 seconds later, putting him within 12 seconds of the overall lead. An uneventful GC day with Lotto's Pim Lichthart attacking the break to form a group of 3 over a climb 21k from the finish, before himself being caught out by a counterattack from Astana's Liwe Restra on another climb 13k later. But 3 minutes down the road, Chris Froome suffered a crash, scuffing up the leader's jersey and prompting the main pack to more or less stop. Ahead, Westra and Omega Pharma Quickstep's Jan Bakelins worked without too much cat-and-mousing until 300 meters to go when Vestra attacked. The early move made sense on the downhill finish, but the Astana rider didn't get around the last bend as well as he wanted, and despite a gamely effort to close the gate and the presence of a poorly placed microphone, Bakelins came around for the win. And now the GC reckoning. 2 Katusha riders up the road, the break in tatters behind them, and the GC contenders looking isolated behind Froome in a Sky-led group. But just as Hessedal was about to reinforce Talansky's position in the final 2k, Contador attacked and no one responded. Porte towed the group into the final kilometer where Froome went after Contador, dropping Nibali while Hessedal closed the gap for Talansky. Meanwhile, Vestra clawed his way back and passed the Katusha duo to take the stage win. Far better teamwork was exhibited by Garmin. Froome did gap the two, but never by much, and Hessedal's towing allowed Talansky to pass Froome in the final meters and limit his losses to Contador to 18 seconds, staying within 40 seconds of the GC lead. The final day was hilly. Not a leg breaker, but it saw an absurdly stacked break get clear. Not sure how Tinkoff-Saxo let this one happen, and while Sky at least put a rider in it, Talansky's presence made that impossible to leverage. The resulting chase was chaotic, arguing, Nibali going away, the gap swelling to 2.5 minutes, until Contador finally left Froome in the dust at 22k to go with 2 big climbs remaining. The Spaniard pulled back over a minute in the next 7 kilometers, but might have overreached, as his gap seemed to level out shortly thereafter. Up the road, Talansky shouldered much of the pace-setting burden, but had an able helper in Lotto's Jürgen Vandenbroek, who was now in the hunt for a podium place. Froome, meanwhile, cracked completely, minutes behind, which freed up Nieve to make an attack at 3k to go. The break began to disintegrate in the closing K as riders went out for the stage win, but Talansky kept within himself, finishing just 8 seconds down on Nieve, who held on to win the stage. Kelderman fared the best of the non-breakaway group on the day, coming in 23 seconds later, but the important gap was between Talansky and Contador, and the minute-plus margin was well over the 39 seconds the Garmin rider needed to take the overall. I'm Cosmo Catalano, and that's how the race was won.